Everybody, and welcome to the estimating training video in Contractor Foreman. How we're going to do this video is we're going to start off doing just kind of a higher level overview of estimating. And then as the video goes on, we're going to get into more and more of maybe call it the advanced features or just into at least more detail anyway. So let's just start off here in the estimating module. We've chosen from the main drop down estimates. And right up across the top, you've got an estimate filter button and a Kanban or card view. Now, when I hit the filter button, I can now filter my estimates by about however I want there. Lots of options. I can also look at all my estimates, not in the dashboard view, but the Kanban or card view. And this is fully customizable and it's got drag and drop capability. So if I can take one from bidding and move that over to pending approval. But you don't really want to do that or need to do that because the system is going to do that for you. So now we can get back to our dashboard here. Oh, I'll show you this real quick. If I want that as my default view, so every time I go to estimates, it's just going to bring me to my Kanban or card view. Let's jump back to our dashboard. As with all modules in Contractor Foreman, there's the link to the training video. There's the make a suggestion, and then here's the settings. Each module has a gear button, and that will take you to the settings for that module. We will be getting into that later on in the video. To start a new estimate, I just have to click Add New Estimate. You can see the widgets we have on the dashboard, things like client responses. So they've said we're approved on that one. Moving down here, we've got estimates by status, pending approval, won and lost estimates, bid responses. This is if you're using the bid packages and somebody replies and responds, I can see who the bidder is there and if they're going to submit or not. Scroll down the list, and then I could click on them and that would take me back to that bid package for that bidder. Down below, we have all of our estimates. And you can see here, got estimate number, total, cost, profit. So you can get a lot of information without even opening up an estimate. If you just need to take a quick overview of what's going on with estimates, and then we've got our status over there that shows you the different status of them. We're going to go ahead and open up an estimate here. And I'll go ahead and get this unlocked. And starting off here, across the top here, we can see our different tabs: details, items, terms, scope of work, bidding, files, cover sheet, and custom. The icons up here, this can lock the estimate. So when locked, the estimate can only be edited by the creator of the estimate, whoever started the estimate, or by the admin. Then you have your save button. Got a total of our estimate up here. The details is really in a way just that, just details: title, estimate number, customer, expiration dates, etc., address. The main one here I want to quickly go over is the status. Very important field because we're going to get more into detail here shortly, but as we're working on it, it's going to be bidding. When we send it out, it automatically moves it to pending approval. Then we get the approval on the estimate, it goes to approved, and that's where Contractor Foreman really starts to do what I call its magic. You also have the ability to do a billing type. So we can do a percentage or unit cost. Now, by choosing it here in the estimate stage, when it goes to create a project, when we get it moved to approved, it dynamically changes the billing functions to bill for either unit cost or percentage. To get over and turn on the billing type, it is off by default, I believe. You can go over here to settings and then go into the financial section, and you'll see it there in the financial sections to allow for unit cost. I think what we'll do is we'll start over here at this end and cover sheets. So a cover sheet, you can have multiple cover sheets. So if you got if you do multiple types of work, residential and commercial, say, easy example, you can have different cover sheets for those, or each estimator can do their own template for their different cover sheets, do them up as they want. Let's touch base here briefly on custom tab. Very handy tool here. We try to give you all of the fields and pieces and parts that you need, but sometimes you just need to track different information. So you can create these custom fields. And again, you do that by hitting the gear button up here. You can create your fields. And these fields are not just static. So you can report on those fields. They can go onto your PDF templates, etc. Your files. So your files, these are just from a job log. They're from any piece of information, the drawings, the specs, whatever it takes, whatever you need to load up here, feel free to load them up. Now, if I want to include them in the estimate, so it goes out with the estimate and or into the portal, I click the head and shoulders right there. You see how that, put my mouse there, this file will show on the PDF and in the client portal. I uncheck it. This file will not show on the PDF or the portal. So I'm going to briefly touch base on the bid packages. That's what we'll get into a little bit more in the farther on in the video. But it's when you're going to go out to pricing to, say, plumbers, electricians, roofers, and you need to get prices from 5 plumbers. And so all that can take place from within Contractor Foreman. They can send you their pricing through the system. They do not need to be a user to do that. Or scope of work. We've got 2 different types. We've got summary. And type up that paragraph type of what you're going to do on the job. And now we got scope of work down here. Again, back up in that gear button, I could create a default list of these. And they could be 50 lines long. And then I can say, well, on that estimate, I just want that one to show up. So now just plant protection would show up as part of my scope of work. Or I could say, yes, it's going to include permits. So you're just selecting the boxes there. The terms, there's terms, conditions, inclusions, exclusions. We can do a default set. So you're going to set up your default. Again, that's in the gear button, the settings. So you're going to set up your default. Got your inclusions, exclusions. I could do one-off, small job. I want to hit them with 10 pages of terms and conditions, so let's just write a brief one. And then I could also do both. So I got default, I got custom, and still I got my inclusions, exclusions. Getting into what I call the meat and potatoes of estimating here. You can see on the screen, it's going to break out, give us a little rundown here of how our estimate is coming together. With the colors and the percentage. So 25% is subcontractor, equipment is 1.38%, all my different costs, my hours, profit, etc. Let's scroll down just a little bit here. Number of ways to start a new estimate. Once you've hit the new estimate button, now we can add items to the estimate. We can import from a previous estimate or a template that we built. We can create a new section here and we can import items from a CSV file. This is very handy if you're using something maybe like an on-screen takeoff system, or you're just using a different estimating system and you're not ready to move over yet. That's fine. You can export from that system and import into Contractor Foreman. Import from estimator template is very handy because here it's just going to be a drop down. And I could say, all right, I want that one. And then all these different things that I can choose to bring over from that template that I had built. I'll show you how to do a template in a second. It's incredibly easy. It's just checking a box. And then I don't have to bring in the whole thing. Maybe I just, that one worked. So I just want to bring in that section. That's one of my sections. See, adding items to a section. Job Essentials is a section. So I could just bring in that one section. I could even bring that in, hit import, and then bring this box back up and select a whole nother template or estimate to pull something else in from. So a lot of versatility there. To add items to an estimate, I highly suggest using the sections. These come into play later on in the system, especially around financials. So try to find a way to break your estimates up into sections. So to create a new section, I'm just giving it section name. I can write a description that can show up on your PDF for the proposal, estimate, quote, whatever you call it. And then I can also make that optional, which we'll be touching base on shortly. Then you're going to have your section, and to add items to the section, got a number of ways that we can do this. We can import from our cost item database. Cost item database is going to reside over here. There's my cost item database. And I can import into that cost item database, or I can add on the fly, and I'll show you that briefly. I mentioned I was going to show you about a template. Kind of forgot to do that. So once I've got an estimate where I want it, I just can go down to the very bottom and check that box. Save estimate as template. Bam. Now I've got a new template. You can uncheck them, and then they'll come off the template list. You don't want them anymore. So back to adding items. We can import from cost item database. We can add a manual item. I can import from the one build material cost item database, which is really handy to get you some good solid pricing to get started. I can apply automatic bulk markup. I can copy a section and delete a section. Let's quickly walk you through these. Import from cost item database. That brings up my cost item database. And you can see I've got my material. It breaks it out by material, equipment, labor, sub. So I'm just going to select what it is that I need, and it will add it over there. So I already brought in drywall there. Select that. There's the dump truck, and I just have to type in by the hour. So how many do I need? I need 50 hours, and there we go. A very quick, easy way to add items in. I'm going to move back up to this add manual method. So it's just going to give us everything blank here, but let's just say stainless steel sink. And very important item type. So I'm going to say, is that material, equipment, labor, sub, or other? We use the MLEO method. That helps greatly in budgeting, reporting, everything, because now the system, when I prove the estimate, it's going to create me a material budget, an equipment budget, a labor budget, etc. So we'll just say that's material real quick. If I know who I'm going to buy it from, I can assign it right here. So I just select, that brings up, go to my vendors, and I can say I'm going to buy that from Woolsey. There we go. How many do I need? So you're just filling it out. Very simple, this part. And say each. So now that's my budget number. Now I'm going to give it a cost code. So I'm just to say plumbing cost code. Again, very important to use cost codes. If you haven't used cost codes before, you don't have a set and you want to start using them, just let us know. We're going to help you develop your set of cost codes. It's going to work well for your company. You can start out small and expand over time, but highly, highly recommend using the cost codes. So now we got our budget number, $400, because I said 400 here, so it put 400 down here, but I need to make money on that. So I'm going to throw 20% markup on it. So now the system knows that I got 20% markup on that 400. It knows that I should make 480, and it's capturing, there's my seller contract amount to my customer, 480. Now let's say that I don't want to use markup because I just know I can sell that for $500. All I do is switch this dollars, put 500 in there. Now it knows that that's a 25% markup. So again, it's going to capture that. And then it puts the 500 down here. So multiple ways to create that. Then I talked about the cost item database. I can have this item save into my material cost database because I said it was material. If I come up here and switch this and say that's equipment, now that would save that into my equipment cost item database. I can make this item optional. Easiest way to explain optional. Let's say we're doing flooring and we have good, better, and best flooring. So if you make those three items, good, better, and best, line items optional, your customer can choose one of the line items, and it will dynamically change the cost of the estimate based on what they choose. So it helps you upsell, helps them pick the products that they want, etc. So to make an item optional, simply check that. Now I'm going to hit save and close, or you'd hit save and add another item. Save and close. And there's our item that we just created. Now that's the laborious long way around the block using that manual method, but I showed it to you so you could understand a little bit more on how the system works, how it all calculates. Because what it's going to do when we approve the estimate, like I said, it's going to create the budgets for all my different types, MLESO, material, labor, equipment, sub, and others. Then it's going to use the cost codes and build our job cost report. So it's really going to set up my entire project for me by approving an estimate. One last thing that I'd like to show you here is on a labor item. Easy mistake to make in the very beginning. So here I got clear and grub site. I've said that this is labor, but you see this note, labor cannot be lump sum in estimate or schedule of values. What we mean by that is I can't type quantity 1 here and say that my total labor is going to cost me $5,000, because a time card is linked to my labor budget. So it thinks, if I do it this way, it's going to think that I have 1 hour that is $5,000 per hour to this cost code, site restoration rehab. So now what's going to happen when they do 8 hours to that cost code, it's going to go 8 times 5,000. That's going to throw off your labor report just a little bit. We have fantastic labor reporting. So if that helps, just something I like to point out. Easy mistake to make when you're just getting going on Contractor Foreman. So as you're putting your estimate together, you get all your sections done and everything. Here's a handy little tool that I just love in Contractor Foreman, show $0 items. It's so easy to miss a line item, especially if you're using a template or an estimate and maybe you didn't need a line item, so you just didn't give it a cost, or you're doing your estimate at 11 o'clock at night, which is pretty common, and you just dropped one out. So by turning this on, it's going to sort through my whole estimate and it's going to look for something that I had $0 on. So it would save me a mistake. And look at that. I forgot a whole section almost. All that is $0. So even if that was just one line item, that would save me a lot in a big headache if I didn't catch that. So nice little tool. Be sure you remember that it's there and go ahead and use it. And then I can show to include markup, or I could hide the markup. So now, say we've got this estimate together. Like I say, I'm going to fall back and get into some more of this detail, especially around the bid packages and things. But now it's time to send our estimate out. So I'm just going to save it. And once the estimate is saved, I'm going to use my 3-dot menu item. Anytime you see a 3-dot menu item in Contractor Foreman, look and learn what it does, because this is where your automation is. This is where the tools are to save you all that redundant data entry. Contractor Foreman is always pushing data out in front of you. And instead of doing it manually, always look to those 3-dot menu items in the system. So here I can email a straight PDF. I can submit for approval. I could create my project here if I wanted. Remember, the system, by marking the estimate approved, is going to create the project, but there are times when you're going to want to create a project first. I can make a copy of that, export, etc. The submit for approval, that's the electronic version. So if you want to gather electronic signature, or you're using those optional items and you want to send them the electronic version, I'll just click this one. They both really look and act the same for the most part on these steps. So if you're going to select a template, you can build your own templates and it will put them up at the top. But in the beginning, we don't want you worrying about building reports, building PDF templates. We build all that stuff for you so you can just jump in and start using the system. So here's all the templates that out of the box that are in your system right now that you can choose from. Everything from very detailed. I always jokingly say you don't really want to send that out because they'd be shopping your bid in about 5 minutes if you sent that out to somebody. But sometimes you do on a T&M type job or something. So I can send out something detailed. I remember our sections. So here I'm going to just select lump sum with descriptions. Now, it isn't quite just lump sum, but it took all of my sections, rolled up all those line items, and just totaled up the section totals. So that's all they're going to see. And we do have straight lump sum only. So there's lump sum total only. That's a really nice one for reviewing. So you can print that out, email that out around to other people in your company, let them review the estimate briefly, or if they don't, just log into Contractor Foreman. Field sheet, that's a little field budget for people out in the field. So then you're simply just selecting whichever one you want there. One we had. And if we're going to email it out, you're just going to do the email icon and walk through this, select who you're going to send it to, and go ahead and send it out. And then, especially if you just sent the PDF, not the electronic version, that's when you would come back in and set that, unlock the estimate, of course, and set that to accepted. So let's go ahead and walk through that step just briefly. A couple of things I want to explain there. So we got the estimate back and it's approved. And so we're going to mark it approved. Remember, it put it to pending approval when I emailed it out. So I don't have to remember to do that. And that's what feeds into those widgets on the dashboard, estimating dashboard, everything. I'm going to move that to approved here. I'm going to go ahead and save the estimate. And we get this little pop-up. So I want to check the first one for sure. Create a new project. So like I said, it's going to build your financials based off all that detail in the estimate. It's going to build your job cost report. So definitely check this one. These two are for smaller jobs. Get more into the schedule of values and schedule of values training. But if it's a larger job or something, you typically don't want to check that one. You don't necessarily want to check this one unless it's a short job. So if it's a 1 or 2 week job, go ahead and click that one. And a lot of times that'll work because if that is going to work for you, it just removes a ton of work off your plate. Plus, down here, we can create a CPM Gantt chart schedule from our estimate. How it does that, it takes all the line items from our estimate and it plugs those in as tasks into my CPM Gantt chart schedule. Does that always work in reality? No. But I always say that it's a lot easier to delete 25 line items than it is to add all 50 by hand. So many times that can work for you. So practice with it a few times and see how well it works. So we're not going to create this quite yet, but I'm just going to uncheck those, but you would just check whatever boxes are appropriate and click OK. And it would go ahead and open up that project. And you see how our chevrons up here have now progressed. So I didn't really send it out, but it would have put it to pending approval. Now I'll put it to approved. When we're done with it, it'll get it moved over to completed. Let's quickly take a look at our gear button up here. And in our gear button, settings for estimates. Remember, every module has that gear button. And what's neat about Contractor Foreman is most of the settings are done enough to get you going, to get you up and running, learning the system. Then as you learn Contractor Foreman a little better, 2, 3 months away, 4 months out, then you can even still go in here and start adjusting some of these settings. Now, as an example, this is a neat tool because this module name, maybe you don't want to call it estimates because you guys call them proposals or quotes. So you can change the name. You just type in proposal or quote there, and it will dynamically change everything in the system, not just the module, but everywhere in the system. It's now going to call it quote or proposal instead of estimate. So I'll just scroll down a little bit here. I won't have time to get into all of these settings. But there's our scope of work. And those are those items. Remember I said you can create a default set of those line items. Message introductions, terms and conditions. Scroll down a little bit more. Like I said, there's a lot of settings here, so I don't have time to go through them all. But here, on your statuses, these are all your statuses. I can edit those and I can reorder them. I can change the number and colors of them, etc. So get in there and make sure you play with those settings a little bit. And now let's go ahead and fall back just a little bit, and we'll probably start over here at the bidding, and we'll get into some of the kind of finer details, if you will, on the estimating on Contractor Foreman. So jump in here. And I mentioned I wanted to start in bidding here, but I think I'm going to jump back into our items tab. So one thing that I want to cover and show you how to turn on, because it's very handy, convenient, nice tool to use, is our one build material cost item database. So when I want to use this, it's going to get pricing. And what I like about this one is it doesn't just do by region or by zip code. You're actually giving it really an address of, say, the job, and it's going to look for, or your office, however you want to do it. It's going to look for the best pricing in your geographical area. First, you have to turn that on. And to turn it on, you simply go to your settings and click on the integrations. So here I gone into settings, and then I clicked on integrations, and there's the one build settings here. So you're going to give it a default location. I can change that at any time, but it will just default to that location. I can, how do I want to bring in cost codes or none, because you're using your own cost codes? Which fields do you want to import? So you're just putting a checkbox in which ones you want to import when you select an item. It's actually pretty handy to give, you can have a photo show up of the item if you want as well. So then you just hit save. I just hit cancel here, and we'll jump back and we'll get into adding an item from the one build database. So I'd select that. Got my default location up here again. I can change that. This only works within the US. So if you're outside the US, check that box, and it just shows you very, very limited information. So now down here, you're just going to type in what am I looking for? Let's do something kind of ridiculously simple there, 2x4. So anything with 2x4 in the name shows up, and I'm going to find what I want. But it also still gives you a number of choices here, because under my unit, I can have it show me a price by linear foot or by each, depending on the item. Let's see, it'll a lot of times give you a board foot. I'm looking for one of those, but I don't see it. But look in your options here. There we go. There's board foot, each, etc. So very handy tool to get very accurate pricing. When we're doing a Contractor Foreman estimating training video, but I like to use some of these prices to get going on my estimate, but then I'm still going to go out to subs and vendors for more precise estimating. And that's where this bidding tab comes into play. Because what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a new bid package. We also give you a little video there on how to manage your bids. And what we're going to do, you see, we've got one started here. Gave it a real generic name. So let's open that up. Or like I say, you'd be hitting create new bid package. Going to open that. And again, everything in Contractor Foreman looks and acts the same way. So again, we got our tabs across the top. So there's my title, my bidding deadline, date and time. Then status bid manager. You're going to leave it at draft as you're putting it together. You can't send it out for pricing to your subs and suppliers until it's final or submitted. I have to leave it at draft because when it is in final or submitted, it locks it down and I can't modify it again. So then we get a reminder email. Very handy tool because, hey, I want to be nice and help these guys remember to get me a bid because I want prices. So it's going to send out an email to all of my bidders that I chose 2 days before that's due. Scope of work. If this was a plumbing bid package, then this would be plumbing scope only, not the entire scope of the job. Now we're going to put our items in, and to get our items of what we want pricing on, you're simply going to go over here to add item. That takes us back to our estimate, and I'm just putting a checkbox in the line items that I want pricing on. You can configure that a number of different ways. Terms and conditions, inclusions, exclusions, don't have to use them. There's no red asterisk there, so none of those are required fields. Sometimes it's nice to put in a little clarification form or what you want them to include or what they should exclude, because you always want apples to apples when you're getting pricing in from subs. Now we're going to load up files. Again, you want to get apples to apples bids. So give everybody the same plans, the same specs, the same information. Load up even pictures of the job site here. Whatever's going to help them get you a good price. Now I'm going to come over to my bidders. To include or add bidders, I'm just hitting add bidders. That just takes me back to my Rolodex. Select who I'm going to send it to. And then it'll track, are they going to submit? When did I invite them? Have they submitted, and what the status is? And so you can see down here, I got pricing in from Robeson, Woolsey, and Dunright. There's all my pricing by line item, so I can compare it. If they ask questions or something, I can see what questions they asked, answer their question, help them out. And then I'm going to select who I'm going to award this to. So I'd say awarded. Then I can plug that price back into my estimate. Maybe I want to do that, maybe I don't, but you got a choice here. Sometimes it works to do that, sometimes it doesn't. So we'll put those prices back into your estimate. Then I would set these to lost. And now what happens is when we're awarded the job, what happens is Robeson, you set up the email, the body and text, I should say, the email, but it'll send a nice email saying, hey, Robeson Supply, great, we're able to use your price, look forward to working with you. And it'll send another email to the people that you're not able to award it to. Again, without you lifting a finger or anything, we do as much of that work for you as possible. Plus, because we've marked this awarded to Robeson Supply, when we mark that estimate approved, it's going to write Robeson Supply either a purchase order or a subcontract. So I'll show you another way that the system will do that as well. So the bid package is very handy. They really keep your subs competitive. They help you become more competitive and win more jobs. So whatever we can do to help you with that, we can get you training, more detailed training on these. Whatever we can do to help, let us know. The other way is I'm going to jump back to our items here. And in our each one of our items, I'll just open up the first one here. If I know who I'm going to get that from or use as a sub, I can select them here. And again, choose from my contractors maybe or my vendors, and it'll put them in the assigned. So we'll say Home Depot, because that was drywall. That's where I'm going to get my drywall from. And again, now when I approve the estimate, Contractor Foreman is going to sort out all the line items that have been assigned to somebody and write those companies a purchase order or a subcontract. So even if you're using only 3 or 5 maybe vendors for POs, subcontracts, etc. on a project, that's a huge time saver. And we get more into that in the other training videos. So there's kind of the quick rundown on how to use Contractor Foreman and really why maybe you should use it a certain way. Last one really I want to touch base on again. I mentioned it in the beginning, but I found a lot of people sometimes don't use estimating because they're using that on-screen takeoff or different estimating system, and that's fine. And again, that's why we have the import items from CSV file. So what I do here is I click that. I'm going to add my files. There's one I already had kind of set up, and this is formatted properly already, but there we go. There's the data that I just imported. Now, you might not have it formatted perfectly for Contractor Foreman, and that's okay. Let's say your quantity and price were switched. These are the columns in your export, your spreadsheet. So all I have to do is hit my down arrow, and I'm gonna say, well, that's actually my price, and that one's actually my quantity. And then it'll import properly. It will know where to put that. So it really isn't a problem if you're using an outside system and you don't want to switch. Look for how to export from that system and then import into Contractor Foreman. And again, that's something we can absolutely help you with on a one-on-one training. So I hope that helps everybody. Thanks so much. Thanks for your time and have a wonderful day. Thank you.